Greetings, everyone. Welcome to COS Today. Dale Parrish, your host, along with Ken Kashuba, co-host and state communications coordinator for the state of Indiana Convention of States. How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing okay, Dale. How about yourself?
Good.
Could be a little better, but you're doing okay, is right?
Well, we're still digging out from this move that we made, and
it takes time. It takes time.
I've almost got the car in the garage. I'm almost there. I just need to rearrange a few other things.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I haven't had my car in the garage for 5 or 6 years.
Well, there are a lot of people in this community. As you know, we moved into a retirement community, but there are a lot of people, and all of our apartments have garages. And a lot of people, the cars are parked in the driveway.
Sure enough.
And I think it's because the garages are full of stuff that they.
I bet you all those neighbors have been there for at least a year or so.
Probably longer. Yeah, I would imagine. Anyway, that's beside the point.
That's true. Let's not go down a bad rabbit hole here.
Yeah. Saving the country with Convention of States. That's what we're all about, folks. And I'll tell you, it's becoming more and more evident to me that holding a Convention of States is just becoming more and more imperative to me, Ken. I think it is going to be the solution to saving the country, quite honestly, and as time goes on here. But anyway. That's what we're all about, folks. Let's let our little buddy Maringo Mike has a few words to say about the QR code and about following and subscribing to our broadcast. So let's let Maringo Mike say
the program. Please be sure and hit the like and subscribe buttons along with the notifications bell so you'll always know when we go live. We appreciate your support and hope you'll join us on our mission to use the Constitution to save the Constitution. Now, back to the program.
Yep, Maringo Mike. He does a good job. Good job for us. All right. Well, let's jump into our first segment here, Ken. This is our In Focus segment, and we've had a lot of good responses on this segment. This is where we bring on some guests, and we all talk about what's caught our attention in the world here recently. In other words, what's our focus individually, and not going into great detail, but striking up a little conversation, hopefully here. So. Let's bring on these guests. I'll tell you, we got some humdingers tonight. I'll tell you, we're going to have to control it, Ken. Okay.
I hear you.
Okay. Here's the one that we really need to control. Hello, Ken.
He's already controlled himself. He's muted.
And you got yourself muted. So
see, I'm trying to keep myself under control out of the gate, and I just
we didn't do that, Ken. That was solely your.
It was me. It was me. I had something going, and sorry, all me.
Although I think
was going to be good.
I do think we need to stay close to the mute button here with Ken tonight. So. But Ken is out of the state of Idaho, and most notably, he holds a lot of positions in Convention of States in Idaho, but also does Restore First Principles writing, and does a great job. Great job.
You can find him on Substack, right? Right, Ken, on Substack?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's Substack, Facebook, YouTube, kind of all over the place. But yes, that's my main place to be, is on Substack 3 times a week, all about the Constitution and what our founding fathers would think of our government today. And it's shall we call it a target-rich environment?
Yeah.
I think I actually Googled that Idaho guy, and your name popped up, Ken.
Well, in all fairness, it's a small population in Idaho. I think 1.6 or something million. So it's smaller than the
I tried to set you up, Ken, but you just.
All
Well, I'm
right. All
trying to
right.
keep myself under control. Remember, I'm trying to be good. So
Okay. Let's bring on the next guy here. This is Gary Harbaugh, the COS Indiana State Director. And Gary, how are you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. I have a serious question for you, Dale. I want to know if I'm the hum or the dinger.
I guess we'll have to wait till after the program to decide that. Gary.
Yeah, let me think about that.
Okay.
Let's see how things go tonight.
That's too hard of a question, I know.
Well, this next guest is certainly not in that category. And this is Debbie Stewart. She is.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Debbie.
Hello.
And
Debbie,
Ken, you don't let them give you a hard time. I just call it just amazing passion is what you have for the truth. So you keep going no matter what Dale says about you.
Oh my. KK, we got now she's on KW's side, and I thought she was on our side this whole time.
And that's all it takes in my head to swell, Dale. So yeah, hang on now. Thank you, Dave.
Dale, if you just decide not to be here for a week, lots of things change.
Yes, that's for sure. Yes. We give you an opportunity and you just try to take over here. But no, just kidding. Debbie, why don't you lead us off this evening and tell us what's of interest to you? What's your focus tonight?
Yeah, especially in Indiana, our primary is tomorrow, and we know that the elections are coming up in November. So there's a lot of talk about the SAVE Act nationally, and then what are the states doing at the state level with their legislatures. So just recently, SCOTUS ruled they ended racial gerrymandering. So basically, they're saying that you can't draw boundaries anymore based on race. This was
I think that is a tremendous ruling, quite honestly.
Oh, I don't know what took so long.
Yeah. Why did it take so long? I just think that's a truly a constitutional ruling, I believe. Okay.
Yeah, that's going to affect like the whole southern United States. They're saying could gain 12 GOP seats because of that, because of the SCOTUS ruling. So I even listened to a CNN video that said if both sides max out their gains, they're saying the GOP could approximately get 7 seats. Now, remember, when GOP gains 7, the Democrats lose 7. So that's really a 14-point difference, right? So, and then I just saw a tweet by Trump, and he's saying 20 plus. I mean, he tends to, but even the CNN person said anywhere from 17 to 20 some seats because of this ruling.
In the midterms?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. That's what they're saying. So this is the SCOTUS ruling was huge. And that 12 was just in the southern states, because I think there was other racial gerrymandering that was a little more prevalent there maybe. So Florida gained 4 seats. They were 16 GOP to 8 Democrat. They are now 24-4. So there's an example of what Florida did. That was before the ruling. And then also in Oregon, so kind of shift across the country, what's going on with voting is Judicial Watch sued because of their what they called illegal doings of voting. And instead of going through with the case, the state of Oregon said, hey, fine, we'll remove all the ineligible voters off our voter rolls. It's almost 20%. So they're removing 800,000 ineligible voters.
Wow.
And because it was a lawsuit, Judicial Watch will be keeping an eye on this.
Yeah. Wow.
And then now another interesting thing is California, what we all consider a really blue state, is getting their version of the SAVE Act on the November 2026 ballot. So they passed that, getting on there. And I didn't realize this, but they did a poll and they said 90% of Republicans support voter ID, 70% of independents, and 52% of Democrats was kind of the numbers they came up with, where so there's a move to get these voter rolls all cleaned up, right? We know there's some organizations working on that. And just to go back to the SAVE Act in Washington, D.C., it was passed by the House, and that it's been stalled in the Senate. And recently, John Thune came out and said, "Hey, we're putting this aside because we have, funding for the DHS, right? And then a few other things. So it tends to be stalled there. So we don't know what's going to happen. Some people are saying nothing's going to happen between now and November with the SAVE Act. And it's pending business in the chamber right now, and it's taken a back seat.
Okay.
But so that's kind of what's just a couple things I've noticed across the country going on. And so we're going to want to keep our eyes on what is happening with this whole redistricting thing that's going on.
I'll tell you, some of the districts that you've seen, if you've paid any attention to the news, Louisiana was kind of a focal point on this.
Yes.
And you saw the district that they created in Louisiana that stretched almost the full length of the across the diameter or diagonally across the state to create a blue district.
Mm-hmm.
Illinois has done the same thing. If you remember, some weeks ago when this was a hot topic, they showed the Illinois redistricting map, and sure enough, there's a blue district that goes diagonally across the state of Illinois. I just find this amazing. I was so happy to hear this ruling. I just think it's so meaningful, really.
Well, you wonder what's going on, because when you look at the 6 New England states that are kind of the upper right-hand corner, out of the 21 congressional seats, 0 are Republicans, but 40% of the electorate are Republicans. So you got to ask yourself, they're all blue. They're all completely blue with nobody represented in Congress that's a Republican. And you got to ask yourself, how does that happen with the 40% electorate for Republicans? So just stuff like that. I mean, I didn't even recognize that until today when I was looking at it, that those 6 states are just completely blue as far as congressional seats.
I mean, what's wrong with dividing the state up into however many districts you want, but base it on population and make all the districts equal in population, and let each district decide who their representative is going to be it Democrat or Republican, independent. Let the people in that district make that decision. So,
well, I think that's actually how it's supposed to be. Sorry, Gary.
If I could comment on that, I think I don't know how you put this in the Constitution, but it seems like what would make sense is to put people in districts that would naturally tend to have similar interests. So rural districts, geographically very large, probably because they're sparsely populated. Urban districts, fine, pack them in together. But what they typically are doing is they're taking an urban area and they're taking enough of those and packing in, a bunch of rural areas so that urban area will have the majority of the votes, and the suburban rural areas really wind up being unrepresented at all, because they're all just carved up into, parts of districts where they don't get to elect anybody. And that's what's happened, I think, in New England. And it's not necessarily urban and rural, but, people that have similar interests should be grouped into districts. And, it seems like the logic, I don't know how you put that in the Constitution or even a statute, but it would make sense. But there's not a lot of things in politics that make real good common sense, I guess.
I think we're beginning to see more and more of that. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, I just real quick, Trump's tweet, it just came out, was that we cannot allow there to be an election that is conducted unconstitutionally simply for the convenience of state legislatures. If they have to vote twice, so be it. We should demand the state legislatures do what the Supreme Court says. That is more important than administrative convenience. The byproduct is that the Republicans will receive more than 20 House seats in the upcoming midterms. That's pretty big if that's true.
Where does that statement come from, Debbie?
That is on his Truth Social. He just put that out a
Truth
little while
Social.
ago.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Gary, you got an interesting topic tonight. We talked about this before the show started. So, Gary, what's on your mind?
Well, kind of an off the wall topic in the sense that it's not really as political as most of the things we talk about. But I've been reading about this kind of combination of robots and AI. And so the thing that kind of hit me is the idea that once you train one robot to do a certain task, that training can be transferred to an unlimited number of robots immediately. And so think of the, quick service restaurants, McDonald's, Burger King, and so on. They train employees one at a time. But with a robot, you train one robot, and that training transfers to every other robot. And the companies that are manufacturing these, they're estimating that they will be leasing these robots for somewhere between $300 to $500 a month. One company is saying $300, another saying $500. I don't know, but you think about it. If you owned a business where you could substitute a robot that you pay $300 a month, that's $10 a day, versus hiring a low-skilled worker for $20 an hour, there's no question that this is going to have a huge, I think, impact on us today. It's going to take a year or two, but it's really coming quickly, and they are scaling up the mass production of these robots that incorporate AI, and they can be trained to do, household work kind of things. So, you have your restaurant, this robot flips burgers all day, cleans the restaurant at night, and maybe recharge the battery for a few hours overnight. And you're eliminating not just one employee, but maybe several. So I think that the impact of this is something that we got to start getting our minds around, what it's going to do. And for young people, what kinds of work are not going to be replaced by robots and AI. And those are the areas where people need to think about focusing their learning.
Of course, now the robot will be afforded a vacation, right? And health insurance, a retirement plan. Will that all be part of the package, you think? Or
you know what I really think will happen? I think government's going to say we have to tax the robot so that, look at all the tax revenue that's going to disappear when you hire a robot instead of an employee. There's no payroll tax, right? None of that. That goes away. And as you say, and they can, your legislators are going to say, gee, they don't have to pay, sick, health insurance, sick leave, vacation leave, any of that. So we should be able to tax that robot a whole bunch. And I think that is what will likely happen.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yes. Very interesting. Yes.
So it's a big impact on society, I think.
I find it's interesting the robotic dogs that you see and animals that they and the use of these robotic dogs, even in police work. I think I saw a report on that. I also saw a report on the use of drones in school shootings, where the instead of police officers going in after the shooter in a school, they send these drones in, and I thought that was pretty interesting. That's kind of in the realm of the robotics in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So
a lot of that is coming.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. So I think those are certainly all productive, positive uses, it seems to me, of AI and robotics. Very good, very good.
Can I make just a quick comment on that?
No, not right now, Debbie. Sure.
Please do.
No, what I was going to say, as a teacher, that could be a really good thing, because we go through the active shooter training, and the question in the room is nobody knows where the shooter's at. And so you have to make a call. Do I try to get my kids out of the building, or do I try to barricade them in? And you're making that on so little information. But if you had a drone that could notify shooter is in hallway B7, or on the north wing, that makes a huge difference on making a very accurate call to get your students out or keep them in.
That's a good point. Well, this report showed where you would, the example that they were showing, that they would send a number of drones to locate this shooter. And if necessary, the drone could shoot the shooter.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I mean, if it was necessary, I guess.
Well, I was going to ask about that, Dale, whether or not it has any firepower, shall we say, and what gives it the go ahead. Is it somebody watching, a police officer, drone operator, whatever?
Oh yeah, there's an operator somewhere in a safe spot. I mean, it's got cameras and everything on the drone. I mean, you can see everything going on. And yes, in this particular report, they showed where the drone fired at the in the example that they were showing.
Wow.
So,
well, this topic has piqued the interest of one of our viewers, so I'm going to post his comment real quick. David Todd says that's on the third Back to the Future. We're a little late. Thanks, David.
Probably so. Yes. Back to the Future. Really, that's some time ago. My goodness.
He said the third.
The third one, huh? Okay.
How many were there? 4 or 5? I don't even remember. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, okay. Very good, Gary. Good topic. KW, Ken Whaley. Okay, you're gonna really stir things up here. I got a feeling, right? Okay.
Well, I'm gonna try not to, but I may, and I apologize. I've still got grunge going on. I was reading this morning in the news about the hearing that was held for the White House Correspondents' Dinner alleged shooter. They're still calling him, and how basically the judge in the case decided that this young man was being treated unfairly. He was they considered him a suicide threat, so he was in a lockdown room, padded walls, all the suicide threat things that they do. And he basically apologized to this guy for the treatment that he was receiving in the Washington, D.C. jail, and even went so far as to compare his treatment to the January 6th protesters' treatment, some of which were in jail without charges for a very long time because they were considered, and I don't remember the statute, but considered terrorists and so on and so forth. And this judge had the guts, I'll put it that way, to not basically apologize to him and say, you shouldn't be being treated so badly. Considering he's got a manifesto, he took pictures of himself arming himself, seen walking the whole premises the day before in preparation. I mean, and that was the other thing he said while I was going there. He said, we're innocent until proven guilty. Well, that's true. And I would never back away from that. And for anybody who might want to make comments, that wasn't where I was going with that. But at the same time, I mean, I won't say he's guilty as sin, because he's not yet technically, but he definitely showed intent, showed forethought. I mean, traveled across the country on a train to be able to do this so his weapons could stay with him, etc. The intent is absolutely there, and to me, it's just utterly and completely wrong for the judge to make a statement like that. So it just got under my skin really big. Now, part of the reason it did that, excuse me, is as you guys know, I'm going to be doing my number 5 lessons from Rome today. And it kind of delves into that, which we've dealt with on us other of the lessons about the imbalance within our judicial system these days. Probably been the last 10 years or so. It's gotten much worse in the last 5 to 6 years. And that is just a prime example of that. And that's why that jumped out at me and grabbed me by the hair. And that's pretty tough to do. And said, you know, how can that be that he would be apologizing to this man who went in to cause mayhem and havoc? So, sorry, feel myself getting wound up. But that was my topic for the day.
Well, KW, correct me if I'm wrong, but I always thought that part of becoming a judge, and once you sit behind the desk of a judge, that feelings were not supposed to be any part of what you were doing. It was supposed to be all based on facts and you know, weighing those decisions based on that. So I think over the last 4 or 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 years, the feelings judges that we've been seeing all across our land need to be retrained, and certainly some of them just taken off the bench.
I was going to say impeached is the word I would have gone with there, and taken off the bench. Absolutely. Of course, at the federal level, they're a lifetime appointment. So it is a difficult task. And there are, I want to say, a little under 800 of them, I believe, throughout the country at that level. I could be wrong on the number. It's in that range somewhere. So it'd be a huge task. And of course, there's always a shortage of judges. Like it or not, like whatever they do or don't do, there's always that shortage. And it would be it would have a lot of impact, especially a lot of them taken off very quickly. But I agree, it's supposed to be the facts presented, and the law behind the supposed break in the law or whatever the defendant did.
Criminal act, sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, but yeah.
Well, either am I. He's sitting below me in this picture here, but I mean, I think it's even worked its way as I think we can all attest to. We at least have a couple of those that have reached the Supreme Court level that let their feelings become known, and really, those are supposed to be kept under their robe, I guess. So
yeah, don't get me started about our latest Supreme Court justice. If you will,
Who's the guy that leads the Daily Caller? What's his name? Oh, for goodness sakes, I can't. Anyway, I saw a clip on him recently. He was at a discussion, and they were talking about a particular topic, and he said, you know, facts don't have feelings. Facts don't have feelings, and right. I thought that was very, very
apropos.
Yeah, you know, if you want to tie these two topics that Debbie and Ken had, tie them together. If we could swing a 20 seat swing in the House of Representatives, and then impeach, one federal judge for stupidity, like this guy that Ken has brought up, that would send a message to the entire federal judiciary. You don't have to impeach all of them. You just impeach one, and the word will go out. Don't do stupid stuff. And I just think that Congress has totally fallen down on the job on this area for decades. You might remember, probably been 30 years ago, when Senator Day O'Connor cited foreign law in an opinion that she wrote. And I thought then Congress should have impeached her for saying, hey, you know what? This is America. We look at American law. We don't consider what other countries use for their laws. But Congress doesn't have the common sense to do some of that stuff that would rein in the federal judiciary without having to replace everybody. Just send the message.
Yeah.
Gary, I overall agree with the one and send a message. But my gut instinct or gut feeling tells me that for the most part, these are ideological approaches that these judges have, and that they'd rather all be impeached and fight and toe the line, keep doing what they're doing, versus saying, "Oh, he got in trouble and I won't do that." Because for the most part, I think they feel invincible. And not change subject entirely, but I believe the quote government in Iran at the moment, whatever is left of it, is doing the same thing. They're pulling the same stunts with Trump that they've been doing for everybody forever. Stall, 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 stall. We'll come to the table. We'll talk. We'll do this. We'll do that. And then nothing ever happens. In the meantime, they're reformulating, getting their act together, et cetera, because they're going to go down. Well, I can't say with a ship. They don't have any left, but you see what I mean, though. Yeah, and anyway, I would hope it would be that simple, that would work that way. I would say good on it and hold to that line, but something tells me that would be a tough road to hoe for those folks, for majority of them.
Yeah.
Could be.
Interesting.
I'd say give it a try.
Oh, I'm not against that. No, not at all.
Well, for the sake of our viewers, as Ken said, he's going to be coming on here very shortly to give us lessons from Rome in number 5, and the judiciary and administering law, and is very, very much one of the lessons that he's talked about. So he'll be going into that more detail here coming up very soon. The other Ken Kashuba, what's on your mind, man?
Well, I think I'm going to pile on tonight with the things that we've already been discussing here that kind of point very much towards the things that we are trying to use our Constitution to fix. We're looking at issues of our Congress. We're looking at issues of our judicial system. I just want to bring up another example of our government that has gone awry. I'm trying to think of even a worse word to describe it. But back in 2023, Pete Buttigieg was interviewed and was bragging about the fact that he voted against the merger of Spirit Airlines and JetBlue. Now, just the other day, we had Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, for those who may not recognize the name, was caught saying, well, not caught saying, she was basically as well bragging about the fact that she was against this merger, which could have saved this airline. And the thing that hasn't been proven yet, although I think we have plenty of evidence from other Congress members, and obviously probably senators on both sides of the aisle. This is covering both sides, and the problem with our government as a whole is the fact that and again, this hasn't been proven yet, but I think there's enough evidence that it goes on that it should be investigated. And that's the fact that people are claiming that our friend Pocahontas sold off a bunch of stock prior to this failure by Spirit Airlines. Now, again, we've talked about this plenty of times where these people are being paid, under $200,000 a year. And some of them are serving 30, 40 years. Some are serving a lot less and coming out as millionaires. And the American people don't have the opportunity to some of the information they get and to some of the things that are being voted on. And they don't have the opportunity at their as an American making even a good salary to turn around and come out with the type of wealth that our elected officials are coming out with. So again, it remains to be seen whether she actually did sell off some stock. And I think the whole thing really does need to be investigated. Of course, then it gets back to the same old problem we've been talking about. You know, we have one in California that's a sex pervert. We have others across the nation that lie under oath, and nobody goes to jail. Nobody gets. I mean, they get a slap on the wrist, if that, or their name is brought up. You know. On TV, and then it all just goes away, and we move on to the next major moment that the media presents us with. So, yeah, that's what I was focused on, and I know I probably could have shortened that up a bit, but it brings me back. We need a convention of states, and we need to start slapping down this federal government that's way out of control.
Couldn't agree with you more, Ken, especially the COS aspect. I mean, it's so necessary. So many different ways our government's out of control. The overreach, the spending, the cheating and the lying. I mean, I have a hard time listening to the news anymore, even reading it for that matter, because they do quotes, and I just think that's a blatant lie. How can they get away with that? They're not held to account by the media at this point, though, especially, shall we say, the left-leaning side of things. And for that matter, neither is anybody from to be nonpartisan about it, neither side are getting held accountable, to your point. And I agree entirely.
Right.
Something's got to be done, but COS is the way.
Well, I'm seeing more and more examples. I agree with you, Ken. I'm seeing more and more examples every day of where convention of states is becoming so necessary because it's out of control, and I think a lot of the things that we see happening in this country are connected, and I think there's, as a matter of fact, we're going to delve into this on our COS Perspective segment coming up on May 18th. We're going to try and delve into this, and are a lot of these things connected? Is there a connection between the assassination attempts, the SAVE Act, the what we're talking about with the judges, the judicial system, unwarranted, unrestricted warfare doctrine from the China, the civilization jihad that you talked about, Debbie? Are all these things? Is there a connection here? Are these all connected? What's happening? Why are these things happening? So anyway, that's not what was on my mind tonight, but I thought I would delve into that a little bit. I think there are things happening in our country that allow things like the things that I just mentioned, allow these things to happen, and I'm not sure what they are, but I think we need to talk about that anyway. But a couple of things that's caught my attention is I saw a report today on Cuba. That I guess Trump is looking at Cuba again. Evidently, if the reports are correct, Cuba is really, really hurting with regard to oil and so forth. I saw one report that on the black market in Cuba, a gallon of gasoline goes for $40, and that's really something.
Crazy.
Talk about high gas prices. My goodness, you know. But I don't know. I think we're going to start. I guess we're going to start hearing more about Cuba. But that really caught my attention. That I guess he's ramping up his attention on Cuba. And another item that's caught my attention is with the Iran situation. This oil blockade that he's imposed. I hear a lot of experts are claiming that is a really substantial and really great move in this war, and that it's it's in time. It's going to take a little time, but they're losing something like $500 million a day, something like that, in revenue. That's got to take a toll in time, and it shouldn't take very much time. But why are we not hearing more about that? It seems to me the focus seems to be on military things, and this is another part of this war that this prevents troops on the ground. This could, I think, and I think it could be the thing that drives them to the table. Quite honestly, I think. Do you all hear this? Do you all listen to reports like that? Does that catch your attention?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go ahead. I'm researching something.
I guess my point is I only wish she had started it earlier and shut down the oil earlier, because if anything can basically that the government, I'll be kind and call it that. It's got to collapse. It's got to go to the point where the people can rise up, have an opportunity to take their country back, and reestablish a new form of government. Doesn't have to be a dictator, democracy. Sorry, maybe a dictator, but that's not any better. But to me, that should have been started a lot earlier. And I think the reason that it's not though being covered, Dale, is that because it's working, and not only do they not have that $500 million a day, but their oil wells very soon are going to have to be shut off, and that pretty well decimates them. They're running out of oil space, or they're going to do something really stupid like just start pumping it out onto the ground so their wells will stay active. And of course, if you don't hear the environmentalists making crazy about that, then anyway, I shouldn't go down that path. But my point being is I think it's not being covered because it is being successful, and anything that's good for our current administration they see as bad and will fight it or ignore it. And that's my take on why they're doing that.
Yeah, could be right.
I agree, Ken. I did see the same report on Iran running out of space to store unsold oil. And they're saying it's a big concern mainly because it only has weeks of capacity left. Production cuts are increasing, raising concerns over long-term damage to the oil fields and delayed but significant revenue losses. So you combine the revenue losses, but just the fact that this oil is sitting in these storage tanks and nowhere to go. I don't know if there's a limit on how much time those things the oil can actually stay in these storage tanks. I don't know whether it gets corrupted or does it degrade any? I don't know, but yeah, it's like putting the plug in the dam, and that all backs up, and sooner or later. So I think that plus the blockade and everything that's been done there is really ingenious, if they're saying it's got weeks before the capacity is done, that they really have limited time to continue to play their game over there. So
I had actually dug into that a little bit as far as why, because I can't leave something lie. And what I found was it wasn't even so much the oil once in storage, but it was the oil fields themselves. In essence, once they get the pressure released and they aren't drawn and keeping the pressure on, and I'll probably get this wrong. All the science people are going to give me all sort of Hades about it. But I believe what happens is once you lose that pressure, water starts coming in, all sorts of bad things start happening. And even if they can get the pressure up and start it moving again, in essence, 20 to 30% or better of the field is inaccessible at that point in time. Somehow it just kind of falls and drains away. And that I think was the biggest fear for them. I mean, imagine they're making, $500 million a day, or not at this point, but normally. And then because of not being able to sell what they have, their wells drop by half in capacity, let alone take months and months, maybe even years to bring back up to half capacity. And there's just a great source of revenue and oil, honestly, for the country and the world that is no longer available. So that I think is the long-term real big hit on them. But
Sounds like a new episode for Landman coming up to me. I don't know.
we'll run it
You know,
and
the
fix it.
media,
Well, they did
I
end
think
the
the
season
media-
on starting an oil company, right? So maybe that's the case. You
let's
never
not
know.
talk about this. It's going to get us into
Oh, lost Gary there.
Lost Gary there. Okay. All right, guys, we're out of time for this segment, so let's wrap it up there. I want to thank you very much for participating. Once again, very good discussion, and hopefully you'll come back and join us again in the future. So, Debbie, Gary, Ken, thank you very much. And Ken, don't go away.
Thanks
We're
for
going to
having
bring
me.
you back on very soon. All right.
Good.
Thanks, guys.
Bye,
Thank you.
Debbie. Bye, Gary.
Bye. Thank you.
Well, another good session there. Another good segment, Ken.
A lot of things on people's minds, and it's just
Yeah. I'm always fascinated that we got 5 people participating in that segment, and generally each one of us have a different topic that's caught our attention.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, we have maybe one or two that we're thinking the same thing, but generally everyone's got a different topic. I think that's very good. Very good. All right. Well, Ken, let's move on here. And you might know our friend John Ackerman has got on his soapbox again and wants to talk about democracy. I thought this was very good. So let's listen to what John's got, what he's got to say here.
John Ackerman for Convention of States. I want to talk to you about the United States Senate. It's a hot mess. That means it's dysfunctional. The Senate Majority Leader will not allow it to go into recess, which would allow the President to do recess appointments. And so they have these silly little pro forma sessions where there might be 3 senators present, and they last about 25 seconds, and nothing gets done. Speaking as a person who enjoys freedom, I kind of like it when the Congress is deadlocked and they can't interfere with our lives. Someone said, no man's life, liberty, or property is safe whenever the legislature is in session. And that's kind of a joke, but there's some truth in every joke. That's what makes a joke funny. It has a little truth in it. So I kind of like it when the Senate isn't, and the House aren't meddling in my life and disturbing my freedom. But the Senate is dysfunctional. And I think a large part of that dysfunction is the 17th Amendment. Now, it was passed and ratified in 1913, more than 100 years ago. But for most of the life of this republic, remember we are 250 years old, for most of those 250 years, state legislatures appointed their senators. And the genius of our framers was that the Senate was intended to represent the interests of the states. If a senator got out of line, the state could recall that senator and replace her or him with someone who would represent the state's interests. Since 1913, with the direct election of senators, the Senate is just a smaller version of the House, elected by the people. And so they have become much more politicians than was intended. And so I, for one, call for a repeal of the 17th Amendment. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know if that fits into one of the 3 pillars of amendments that Convention of States stands for, but as a long-time member and activist in Convention of States, I would certainly approve and lobby for and work for the repeal of the 17th Amendment and return the Senate to representing the interests of the states.
Really enjoyed that one.
I don't think that was about democracy.
No, but I enjoyed it anyway.
I did too. I just wonder, have we already shown that one, or I don't know.
No,
No, but no, that's a good one. That's a good one.
brand new.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on then, and it's time to bring KW back, Ken Whaley back, and to talk about Lessons from Rome number 5. So Ken will have to unmute himself, but we bring Ken right back on. Hello, Ken. Hello again.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for having me back. And I want to say I'll second his proposal for repealing the 17th Amendment.
I thought you might.
Absolutely.
I thought you might. Yeah.
Oh, yes. I won't go there. Sorry.
Yeah.
I love his stuff. I really do. Love the soapbox segments.
Yep. Very good. Very good. Well, Ken, I've loved this series that you've been doing, Lessons from Rome, and you've done 4, and this is number 5. So I'm anxious to hear what you got going on, because once again, I will say I do believe that our country is following in the footsteps of Rome, and or it seems that way. Hopefully we don't end up that way, but there's so many similarities. So, well, enough said. We'll let you take it away there.
Well, I agree 100% with you, Dale. And I always had the feeling, shall we say, for years that there were enough similarities to want to discuss, talk about, etc. And as I dug into this series and looked at all of them, and of course I've discussed quite a number of them now, it really numerous times just shivered down the spine. Well, what little hair I had was standing up on end going, hey, this is not good. This is way too familiar. So in essence, over the past few months, as we were discussing, we've been working through what I have been terming as a pattern here on the show. So it hasn't really been a theory in the sense of a single moment in time when these parallels came across, but basically a sequence that for Rome actually unfolded over generations. And I think it's happened a good deal faster here. It's almost been what's the term I want? Expedited over the last, say, 20, 25 years, maybe even going back to FDR when he started the whole progressive movement. But I think that when you view it from a distance, I feel this whole thing, this pattern, these parallels become remarkably clear. Because in essence, the Roman Republic didn't fail suddenly. As we know, it took generations, as I mentioned, and certainly it wasn't a single decision or even a single leader during that time. But instead, again, it was just a series of progressions. And I do have to recap slightly here, so bear with me a little bit. Of course, when the Roman people slowly lost sight of why their limits existed in the first place, remember they came from being under kings, wrote their legislation or built their republic with not a one-page constitution, but multiple documents, basically did a lot of those same things. But so they placed limits on things, and I'll get ahead of myself there, but those limits were still there and still visible, even still referenced, but their purpose was no longer understood by the people that they were in place for. So as that understanding by the citizens of Rome faded, something else actually changed alongside with it, that the citizens gradually stepped back from the responsibility of maintaining those limits. Participation became less consistent. Engagement became what I was terming as more selective. Some people would get involved with certain things, but not everything, that type of thing. And as that space opened, of course, it didn't remain empty, just like any time in history when there's a vacuum of power, somebody will move in to fill that power vacuum. That was redundant, but you get the idea.
Good or bad, right?
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, even if they come in without bad intentions, it tends to go there. But again, I'll get ahead of myself there. But basically, it just expanded into areas where restraint had once been actively maintained by the people of Rome, which of course kept that power, kept the people that took it offline to be able to come in and take over the way it eventually did. At the same time, when the people were stepping back, Rome continued to encounter crises, some real, some perceived, and in response, it relied more frequently on temporary expansions of authority. Again, we touched on this, but I just need to kind of lay a little groundwork here and walk back through some things. And those measures were justified individually. And again, with this particular topic, I always think of COVID. They did a lot of crazy things. Our government did during the COVID years. And each one more or less made sense in its own movement. But over time, those temporary measures began to accumulate, going back to Rome at this point. And eventually, they no longer really felt temporary. They felt normal. Many of the things from our COVID years still are hanging around, even if they've been very slow to peel back, put it that way. Maybe that's a better approach. But once normalization that takes hold, the next shift actually becomes easier to miss because, again, more people are disengaging, not paying attention. And that, again, as we touched about, was the institutions. Sorry, again, I still got a throat thing. Basically, those systems were originally designed to restrain power. They didn't disappear. They continued to function and operate. And from the outside, they still look familiar and even comfortable to the citizens. But internally, something in these institutions began to change over time. Their role starts to move away from enforcing consistent limits and more towards producing consistent outcomes. And again, I've touched on that, I believe it was last session. Now it became about the outcome as what was important, not the process to get there and achieve the right outcome. So that change is subtle. In many cases, it even appears beneficial. I touched on that because the decisions tended to come more quickly. Problems seem to be addressed more directly. The friction that once slowed the system down.
Yep. Come on back in.
Be to fade, we discussed before, was never accidental. Whoop. Am I going away?
No, you're there. You just
You're
for a
back.
second.
I will make a comment about my wife is probably cheering, but that's a different topic. So if I was dropping off there, sorry. Boy, I shouldn't have done that. Sorry. I know she'll watch this, and I'm going to catch. Yeah, anyway, I'll move on. So anyway, it really was the protection, and when that disappears, the restraint begins to fade with it. So if we follow that pattern and bring it forward to today, it leads to a very specific condition. And again, it's not a collapse, not chaos, but just kind of a gradual shift into how law itself is experienced. Okay. And again, I touched on that in the earlier part of the show about the differences you feel from one person to the next about how law is, what's the word I want? Engaged, put upon people, so on. Some people get harder sentences than others, etc. Anyway, but so rules begin to feel less consistent is really what that boils down to. And outcomes begin to vary that are kind of difficult to explain why. And excuse me, again, I apologize. So again, similar situations produce different results dependent on the circumstances or the individuals involved. And again, that goes to things we talked about earlier on the show and other segments. But over time, that inconsistency changes something very fundamental to a Republican system, because a republic doesn't depend only on the existence of laws. It depends on the belief that those laws apply equally. And when that belief weakens, legitimacy weakens with it. And Rome reached that point, not because the institutions had vanished, but because their function had shifted away from equal restraint and towards selective application. That would be with the law, I should say, versus with institutions. And again, now bringing that forward into our time, this is where the conversation becomes, to me, a little more direct about what's going on for us. Because you don't have to agree on every example, but reasonable people, because we're reasonable people, will always see things in different ways. Even two people that talk about something like convention of states may not always see the best way to make it happen, to implement it, what would happen once it's ready to go. But it's much harder to dismiss. But what's harder to dismiss, I'm sorry, is the growing sense that similar actions don't always lead to similar consequences. So rules can appear firm in one case and flexible in another. Again, touching on things that went on earlier for us. And once that perception, boy, having trouble here. Once that perception becomes widespread, whether fully accurate or not, it begins to change how people relate to the system itself. Because when law is no longer experienced as consistent, it's no longer experienced as a limit. And of course, we see that these days too. But in essence, it becomes something else, something that it can't really be navigated, influenced, or applied evenly. And that's where a republic begins to lose its footing, in my mind. At this stage in the whole flow, it's very common to hear a familiar conclusion that the system has failed and that it's broken. But Rome really showed us a very, a more difficult and perhaps more honest way to look at that. Because what their experience suggests is that the system itself doesn't fail on its own. It changes when it's no longer operated as it was designed to be operated. So the American system, much like Rome's, was never intended to be to function automatically. It was built on the assumption of active participation. Assumes that each branch of the government will defend its own role, that states will resist encroachment when necessary. We know that isn't happening these days. And that ambition will counteract ambition. I've actually touched on each one of those topics on different Restore First Principles posts. And of course, that's part of what led me to agreeing to do this series. So many similarities. And then the other thing is that citizens themselves will remain engaged, holding all of it accountable. Well, going back to making it work, that citizens will remain engaged in holding all of it accountable through elections, through public pressure, and through the mechanisms that were put in place for that very purpose. In other words, it is, after all, a system that requires use. And when that use becomes inconsistent, the system doesn't collapse, it drifts, which is basically what led to all those things that I was just talking about.
So disengagement, and the system starts to break down, right?
Correct. And that's very much what happened to Rome. And of course, I've touched on it in earlier lessons that very much, in my mind at least, is what's going on here. And, you know, it's just, how best to put it? It's difficult to be a part of a system-run form of government. But anyway, that kind of brings us to the point that it isn't especially comfortable, but it's necessary for all of us to address in that because it shifts the focus away from institutions alone and back towards the role of the citizens. So that was a perfect kind of segue there for me, because I believe that Rome didn't lose its republic because its people suddenly decided they want to go back to an empire. Mm-hmm. I really kind of doubt that would have happened. But no, I believe that they lost it because over time they stepped back from the work that self-government requires. They became less willing to engage, less willing to insist on limits when those limits became inconvenient, and then they became more willing to accept outcomes. So again, going back through that whole process, even if the process behind those outcomes had shifted. And of course, in doing so, they created the conditions for power to expand without any meaningful resistance. So I truly think that everyone listening should feel kind of a tingling in their spine, because that felt familiarity in that last statement, that without that meaningful resistance, the whole system starts to shatter, fall apart, and fade is a best term that I could come up with for that. So the question we have to consider, to me, isn't only what has changed within our institutions, it's what has changed within our expectations of ourselves. So I need to ask everyone watching, okay, well, have we as a people remained participants in a self-governing system, or have we gradually and perhaps even unintentionally become observers of it? Because there's a meaningful difference between the two. So I'm sure, anybody who's paying attention, would understand and agree with, because participation requires effort, requires attention, and it often requires a discomfort. And we need to be able to get out of our comfort zones as a people, as we the people, as I like to term it. So observation, on the other hand, requires very little. You can kick back and do nothing. And over time, it's easy to see how one could replace the other. It's much easier to say, yeah, I'm just going to watch and see what happens. I do my voting and that's that. But the lack of active participation on a day-to-day basis is what allows the system to start fading and shifting. So Rome's experience kind of leaves us with a reality that's difficult to ignore, at least to me. A self-governing system only functions as intended when it's actively operated by its citizens. Not occasionally, not only when it's convenient or comfortable, but consistently, day in and day out. You see, when we the people slow or stop engaging, the system doesn't disappear. Yes, sir.
Got a question. I just wonder, do you think maybe back in those days of the Roman Empire, and we're talking about a long period of time here, as you pointed out, but do you think were there, how many opportunities were there for people to engage? Do we have more opportunities now today than what people had back in those days?
Yes and no.
And you and I have talked about, what does it mean to be engaged? Well, there are various different ways to be engaged. You don't have to run for office. It doesn't that's only one actual way. There's what we're doing here right now is engagement.
Absolutely.
Do you think maybe back in those days were the opportunities for engagement much more limited than today?
In all honesty, I would have to say yes. And that's an excellent question, because it really does go to the point about this particular lesson. Of course, they had the Senate and they had their house in essence. I don't think they called it a house, but it was, the people were much more part of that. And of course, you got to consider, for the most part, all of the Roman government happened right in Rome. I mean, one large city, not less than the size of New York by a significant amount, even if at its largest. And so the number of people that could be involved, et cetera, was less. But at the same time, the senators, those running things at that level, it was easier for them to go out and be amongst the people, and they were all a lot closer to each other. So that's why part of me thinks that it was easier for folks to be involved. They could literally walk up to the senator, he's down the street, and go, hey, Joe, what are you doing about such and such and the sewer issues down in the lower half, or whatever it might be. And so in that sense, I feel they were closer and easier for them to engage with. And at the same time, they still had city, I don't think they called them county, but region, I think is more the term they used, within the city, that had lesser officials, shall we say, kind of like county commissioners or county clerks and people like that were basically taking what the higher level government put forth to do and brought it all down and made it work locally. And
that's interesting. That's interesting to know that. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Oh no, that's fine. I love the engagement back and forth, really. And so, to your point, I think there was engagement, maybe not quite as much. And then to bring that, only because to bring that forward, I literally have the ability to get on and look at any county commission meeting going on anywhere in Idaho, anytime it's on. And if I don't see it, it's recorded, then I can watch it later. Then if I decide to be part of it, there's actually ways I can send in questions, make statements, get my 2 minutes to do my public speaking, whatever the case might be. Now, that's not the same for all counties, in all fairness. and certainly not the same for all states. In Idaho, they've got a really nice setup that way. Or I drive 25 miles up the street and we, attend one of the meetings, make our voices felt, or run for commission, whatever the case might be. And I think like we have our primaries on the 19th. So just a little over 2 weeks from today. And I've been following and gone to numerous of the talks where the candidates all come together and discuss their topics, what they feel about things, this, that, and the other. Some of them have shown and been really wonderful. Others is like, yeah, I don't think so. They're just not going to make it, which in some cases is a shame. I had several that I really liked as individuals, but they just didn't have a presence, shall we say, to be able to stand in front of people and be a leader, which is really what it takes that way. Okay. So I think today we have more ability to get involved and be engaged than they had then, but they certainly had the ability to do it. But without the internet, without TV, without social media, et cetera, I don't think they got the instant feedback, the ability just to look in and see what was going on that we really have today.
Yeah.
And that, of course, is a huge part of what makes it really sad that we're not paying more attention here. Okay. So, long story short, I didn't see that Rome lost her republic merely because her institutions failed. She lost it again because the habits those institutions failed. Sorry, that beneath those institutions, they failed first. People grew accustomed to the drift. They accepted exceptions as normal. They adjusted their expectations downward, and they became less shocked by things that should have shocked them. And of course, less willing to resist things that required resistance and more comfortable just watching. And I honestly feel that's where we are as a country right now. Literally in that same spot where so many people are disengaged, not being a part of the system, and going back to the whole thing of the fact that it's our Republican system requires citizen engagement and activity in order to function. Okay. And we've lost that, I feel, to a great degree. Like you're right. Sitting here today, this is a form of engagement. But that's some small percentage. I mean, all it takes is to look at voting numbers.
Right.
The percentage of voters.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that alone tells the whole story right there. If you have
I think it does too.
people
Yeah, I think it does too.
And 10,000 of them vote. Well, what does that tell you about how much people care one way or another?
Right.
Then you can't go back up later and say, hey, I don't like that. Well, did you vote?
Yeah.
That's your easiest way to be part of the system. So it oversimplifies a bit, but to me, that's really what it gets down to is the disengagement of the American citizenry and what it's allowed to happen, going back up to our institutions and again to filling in those power vacuums. As there was less citizen engagement, it created that vacuum. Power always goes where the vacuum, and it's not always good power, as we've seen in our current, and well, not so much our current administration, but certainly the House and the Senate. That even goes right back to the 17th Amendment. Really, you change the Constitution, what those brilliant men put together for us, and now it doesn't work well anymore. There was a reason for what they do and what they did. So there you go.
All right. Well,
Great.
Ken, is there going to be a number 6?
Well, I almost feel like I'd have to get off in the weeds pretty hard to do that.
Okay.
I've been trying to keep this fairly high level. And I'm feeling like probably not. But what I do think instead, because this didn't happen in Rome, is to try and look forward and say, okay, what can we do as American citizens? How do we re-engage? How do we get others, even more importantly, to re-engage?
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, the three of us sitting here, we're engaged. We pay attention. We watch the news. We make our voices felt one way or another, through writing, through being on the show here. But most people don't. We're a very small percentage, sadly. And so to me, if I am able to do anything going forward, is to try and look at ways to not only increase my engagement. I'm already re-engaged, because I was one of those people too. For years, I didn't vote. I admit, what one vote, what's going to matter? And now I see that and just want to have my head explode. because I know people literally that live right here around me that feel very much that way. It doesn't matter. And I would like to get them to re-engage. So how do we do that would be where I would go with this next.
Okay, so now we're going to be looking forward to engagement number 1.
Engagement 1. Okay, what's our first step of engagement? I'll come up with a slick title for you. How's that?
All right.
We'll make that work.
That sounds good. Ken, KK, any comments on what KW has been saying? Anybody?
Be nice.
No, just been absorbing it all. I think it's.
Okay.
I think there maybe it'll take a little time to digest. I think.
Well, I think your series has been great, KW, and I appreciate you doing this. And
An interesting study in history. Yeah.
I really I think you got a good idea on a new series here on getting engaged, and you come up with a good title for it, and we'll certainly go with it. So.
And I really want to do a shameless plug here and push Restore First Principles on Substack, because literally that's usually where I really work these things out in my own brain, get them put down on paper, which helped me formulate how I might present some of those things like here. And I've already started some of these processes of looking forward rather, how we re-engage this country to become involved and hopefully pull us back from the precipice that I feel we're on,
Right.
And not lose this country.
Good deal. Ken, thank you very much, guy.
Thanks,
Thank you
Ken.
very much.
Absolutely. Take
Feel
care,
better.
guys. Yeah.
Oh, I think that's been very interesting, Ken. I really I want to thank KW for his work in that area, and
For sure.
so I think that's going to be fun. New series from him on re-engagement. So
That's part of the other thing that we're trying to do here is get people engaged and get people to understand the severity, I think, of where we are as a country. And, by looking at that historical moment and looking at where we are now, I think it's a perfect parallel that people need to understand.
right. Okay, let's move on, Ken. Before we get to our next segment, which you're going to bring to us, Gary Harbaugh has given us a video on Doge. Kind of a
Blast from the past.
Blast from the past. He had some thoughts on what happened to Doge. Let's listen to what Gary's got on his mind.
All right.
Hi, it's Gary Harbaugh, Indiana State Director for Convention of States. Let's talk about Doge. You remember Doge started with the Trump administration. They came in with the goal of cutting a couple of $1 trillion out of federal spending. Doge, by the way, was dissolved earlier this year, and they just disappeared like a lump of sugar in your cup of coffee. Not much lasting effect. The actual savings probably in the order of 150 million, less than 1% of what the goal was. The goal was to drastically reduce the size of the federal workforce, eliminate trillions in spending, consolidate and eliminate federal agencies, streamline government operations. Why didn't they accomplish that? Well, Congress and federal judges. Some federal judges put the brakes on what they could do here and there, but ultimately, federal spending is run by Congress. Every dollar of federal spending benefits some constituency or some interest, and Congress is controlled by those interests and constituencies, and they refuse to make the real changes that had to be made in order to save the kind of trillions of dollars and streamline the structure of government the way Doge was intended to do. Could have been done in the private sector. Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy started out heading it, and they certainly know how to get things done, but you can't get things done when you don't really have control, and Doge really did not have control. Congress still has control. Short-term benefit, a lot of awareness about what the problems are in Washington. Long-term, very little lasting benefit. And the very little lasting benefit is a perfect illustration of why we need structural change Structural change will have to take place through a convention of states that proposes constitutional amendments. Without real structural change, nothing in Washington is really going to change. I'm Gary, and that's how I see it.
Yeah. Oop, oop.
Yep. Bring us up.
Yeah, lost us there. I think many of us were very disappointed to see Doge go away. But I think Gary's right on as to why it went away.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. One of the main problems we're still facing is to why it did. And again, another reason for getting people engaged to understand the severity of some of this. I mean, we could spend a whole couple hours here talking about all the things that were discovered and either brushed aside or just not, in one ear out the other.
All the more reason for a convention of states, because it's evident Congress can't. They're not going to be able to solve it. They can't do it.
No,
they can't do it.
No.
All right, Ken. Let's. This next segment is something you put together, and now you want to talk a little bit about it before we start this, or do you want to?
Yeah, I'll lay a little ground to it, and then basically after the intro, to give you a little bit of because of the restraint of time, and this could have gone on for a lot longer, and I wanted to keep it to a certain degree, certain time level. This footage that I'm about to share, it happened at the University of Illinois for a group called Young Americans for Liberty. Now, the event took place there, and the gentleman that you're going to see is a student from China, and his experiences and some of the things that he'll share that have to do with communism, and you'll see from our May Day events that took place over the weekend and what have you, that there's a real danger with our youth, he's addressing a group in this event to talk a little about, share some of this so people can again understand what I think a lot of these protesters, and they have the right to protest. This is not something that is against their protest. It's really something just to show that there's no real thought as far as a deeper thought on the process or an actual listening to the other side that gets people to understand more about what they're doing. So with that being said, we can go ahead and play the intro, and I'll pause it before he comes on, because again, I need to just lay the groundwork as to what he's going to be talking about when he starts.
Okay, so we're going to start it and keep the two of us here on
off to the side. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Angeles. So 4 cities, it was one playbook, Tommy. And it was this network. It was this network of these organizations that you just mentioned with $2 billion in collective revenue. And there are 2 tycoons that are funding a number of these organizations. George Soros is one tycoon, and Neville Roy Singham, living in Shanghai, pushing out the propaganda of the Chinese Communist Party, is another. The machine of propaganda that they put out into our streets across the country in order to push a type of cognitive warfare on the brains of Americans. Yeah, because we know that indoctrination happens most successfully when you are young.
So I'll pause it here. This is a Chinese student speaking at the University of Illinois for Young Americans for Liberty. So to lay the groundwork for what he's about to talk about is, as a student in China, he is in his high school years, and there's an application he's using there called WeChat, and he posts a YouTube I take that back. I'm not sure what is YouTube. He posts a recording of an interview for the president of China and he posts this to bring out the fact that he couldn't answer the question. He refers to his that he doesn't have any notes on this. So he kind of pushes it aside as most politicians do when they don't have an answer for what they're being asked. So this takes place now after he has posted this on WeChat, and what happens next is what he starts talking about when he comes on. He talks about a couple days after he's posted this on a social media application in China. Again, he's in China, and we'll let him pick it up from there. Now you got to remember he still has quite the China. I'll call it an accent or inflection, so you have to listen a little closely at times. He does pretty well. He does good with English, but just want to let you know that that's some of what he talks about. Go ahead.
Yeah, he has interviewed.
Not he. No, he posted it. He posted a video that was done that he basically took and reposted on his WeChat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he didn't do the interview. He just reposted this video.
But he's commenting on what transpired in this interview.
What transpired after he posted it. And again, it's something that we as Americans do every day. We post videos of things we see, of things that happen in our government, and that's what he's doing. And what happens afterwards is where he picks the story up. So I'll continue here, and we can go to full screen.
So okay, you're going to start it, and do I go?
The one day in the morning, just after another day, I received a phone call from the local police station. They said they would like to have a talk with me. And when I asked what's the reason for that, the policeman in the phone just bleakly said, you should know that cyberspace is not land outside of law. So this actually comes from the Xi Jinping in a conference called the World Internet Conference in 2015. So this is actually, I would say this is a very Orwellian slogan. It's just like remind people everything you did online could be easily traced to your offline identity. At that time, I was still in China, and I understood something like that could not only bother me, but it could even also influence my families. And this is indeed what the policeman said in the phone call. So in that case, I don't have any better choice. So I choose to obey what he said and choose to go to the police station, just see what happened next. It was a really scary moment, and when I just went there, the policeman not only asked my personal information, but also asked my parents and my siblings where are they working at, where are they going to school. So I would say this is coming from the kind of like joint responsibility or collective punishment system, and I would say this is best reflect through a Netflix TV series. It adapted a Chinese science fiction, very famous. It's called The Three Body Problem. Maybe some of you have already read about it. And they had, I would say, they did a wonderful reconstruction of kind of like show trial in the Cultural Revolution. And you can see that the man under the custody of the students, he's a physicist. He's a physics professor, and the woman in the blue shirt was actually his wife. So basically, his wife openly denouncing her husband to show that she has completely cut ties from him. So this is what happened under the Cultural Revolution. So, and the Chinese Communist Party has refined that tactic of collective punishment into the 21st century. And I would say the system like this create a lot of tragedies and shattered a lot of families during the Cultural Revolution. So at that time, I did not choose to do anything more because I know the Chinese government also has a exit control list. People can be barred from leaving their country just for criticizing the government, because in that case, the government would likely to see the dissidents. They don't want the dissidents to go out and to criticize the government overseas. So to avoid being put on the exit control list, I choose to be quiet. But I would say during that time, the confusion and fear still exist. Because literally, after this, I learned every single word I said on the internet could be traced to my offline identity. So it was just like a pair of invisible eyes watching at me at any time. So indeed, I realized the big brother is watching me. Came here by September 12, 2021 to start my undergraduate study at the UC Santa Barbara. And in my college, sometimes I saw the people protesting and they're standing for the socialism. Like somehow it's, so this is sometimes what I feel. Like I feel, to be honest, things like this is kind of traumatic to me. So I thought, to be honest, from my perspective, this works like a hate speech. But the problem is, I see that as a necessary part of the freedom of speech. But the problem is, there are some politicians, especially in California, they're not happy with that. They want to have more. So they're not just satisfying with plainly speaking out, but they would like to seek the border control, such as, for example, there's some proposal recently. I think you have heard they're trying to ban the investigative journalism. So I would say this is all the this is all the perfect recurrence of what I experienced. I still remember the moment on the flight when I just opened the window and see the city lights of the Los Angeles. It was a complex feeling. Finally I reached the land of the freedom. But at the same time, I thought an important thing is, so if at the beginning, everyone, when they are facing the good temptations in the good causes, built in the names such as convenience, efficiency, public safety, all these things, if everyone could step back a little bit, would this happen again? Would what happened on me happen again? So this is my message here today, and I welcome your question.
When you were in San Francisco, is that where you were?
Santa Barbara.
Oh, Santa Barbara, okay. And you were on the campus?
What?
Yeah. Oh. So did you talk to any of the people that were protesting about our country?
Of course, yes.
And how did they respond?
Well, they would say, I somehow it's like more, they're just saying, okay, we're standing for equality and we're standing for the better life of the future, and they try to like distract from what I said. Like, but at that time, I was still trying to be open-minded. But I also talked with people who, because I also participated in some like organizations at UC Santa Barbara, so they would much more like insist on their own knowledge, experience. So I would say it's a hard situation. So it seems they are not entirely willing to listen the facts and opinions from the other side. Because what I have, as I grew up, what I saw is sometimes people just use the economic development to justify the CCP. They thought, okay, so the government made a good decision to develop the economics, so we were no longer that poor. But the problem is, I would say this is a very fallacious argument, because the market economics and the basic freedom, these are like inalienable. These are inalienable rights. The government took away from the people, and then they decided to return part of it back. So that's just like someone robbed you like $100 and then decided to return you $50. That does not nullify the crime. So this is but now it's like the government is even losing that like stand on developed economics. So I can see that this will trigger more people to stand up and try to and question the government, and at the end to reach to reacquire their freedom. Yeah. The government did not directly decide who can accept education, but they do like trying to prohibit people who they consider as a high risk to leave China. Like they will probably confiscate their passport or just just from the database to mark them. So when they're trying to leave, this is the biggest difference. Like in this country, in the US, for the people who are leaving this country, there's no check at all. But in China, for the Chinese people to leave, like there's a border check, and for the people who get in, there's also a border check. Like so, basically, for all the Chinese citizens who's leaving China, they have to like put their passport on the scanner, and only that scanner approved, the people can go. And sometimes they even didn't tell any reason. It's just like, okay, the custom just said, okay, there's a hold on your identity. You're not allowed to leave, and they even didn't tell any reason. Well, sometimes it's just I would more say like they go after certain people, but not everyone. Like sometimes it's just a matter of luck. And I would say this is how they control everything. Like they didn't, because China is still a super large country with like 1.3 billion people. So they could practically not go after everyone, but sometimes they just pick some people to get them into the trouble. So it will scare the others from doing the same thing. Indeed, China played an important role in the globalization in the past decades, which is very different from North Korea, from Cuba, and also even very different from Iran. So that makes everything harder. But somehow I would just say it actually makes, to some extent, it also makes things easier, because there's still a large amount of Chinese people, especially for those living in the cities like Beijing and Shanghai. They are able to see the border war, and they see the problem, and they're trying to leave. This is what I saw. Like many people in Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, they're like very anxious, trying to transfer all their properties into the U.S. dollars and send here and to immigrate to the U.S. So I would say that kind of communication would probably also help more Chinese people to see the truth. So I would say it's more like a double-edged sword in general. Yeah. I think that's, but I guess one thing I can say is about the history. Like all of our history textbooks and geography textbooks, they have that it's called a 9 segments line. They would just every single, look, this is actually I can say it's a China's cancel culture. Like if you're a business, you're doing the advertisement, you show the Chinese map. If you don't label that 9 segment line, if you don't include Taiwan, you'll immediately be canceled. So they're this is what I saw. They just repeatedly emphasize those lands belong to those islands, including Taiwan, or all belong to China. Yeah, they could even disregard the agreement they signed with the British when the British government returned Hong Kong to them. They could just, there's no idea of the rules in their mind. This is, I think, said very accurately by a Taiwanese commentator. He said the CCP is just like the criminal organization. It has no respect on law, has no respect on rules, and it even has no respect on the things said by itself. So it's just using the power, using the strengths like military to try to use that to resolve on everything. So I already learned lots of things about the freedom, democracy. Like I took the AP US history test, read about the Federalist paper. I have a deep admiration toward the Constitution.
You probably know more than most of us in America. I'm just kidding. Oh, no, I'm not actually.
Yeah, I would say generally like, but now sometimes I'm a little bit, especially when I was in California, sometimes I had a little bit like fear. I was a little afraid of the US would slide into the country like China. Like
We're afraid of California too. And we're afraid
that's
of
that. Yeah, that's why I decided to move out of there just December. Like I would say that's the best decision I made in 2025. Yeah. Yeah, but I would say those are still like, and I can see this is a sharp contrast with California and Florida. So it's definitely coming from the that need to be changed by a good leadership, and I believe that the American system still has the ability to fix that. Yeah.
What do you think of the problems? I only just recently heard about this. Of Chinese nationals coming, having their kids here, and then having like the birthright, taking advantage of birthright citizenship, and then going back to China. What's the whole plan with that? Do you know?
I heard about, and I actually knew some people who had U.S. citizenships from that. Like they just went back to China. They grew up in China. They went to all their elementary, kindergarten, high school in China. Like they had a much more ties in China than in the U.S. But they have a U.S. citizenship. So I think, in my opinion, that's a very unfair for the people who hard work, who try their best to do it in the right way. So it's definitely a loophole need to be fixed, but it's also the truth at the same time that the birthright citizenship is like written clearly in the Constitution and also backed by the case law. So that I think that needs more like fix from amending the Constitution, basically. Yeah. Not there was once, but it was a very short visit, so I just keep a low profile. Because I was also I was just like went back at the middle of the December and then just be back before the Christmas Eve, because I would want to celebrate Christmas here, because China, like as a Christian, I could not practice my faith in China. So yeah.
What do you think of? I heard like many socialists try to argue that China like solved their poverty, like they are having like their poverty is a lot better than the U.S. poverty. But of course, they're looking at the very low World Bank index. But if you look at the $10 World Bank index of poverty, it's like 25% of the population. But that since you actually lived in China, what do you think of the actual poverty compared to the U.S. poverty?
I would say, actually, one thing I feel like in China, people even have a different definition on what poverty is. Like, and I can definitely say like China has a much more serious issue. Like, because many people is like still having trouble. Because for example, like the healthcare. I know healthcare, like many Americans have issues on that, but in China, like even they're trying to they're seemingly having like a free healthcare system, but those are not guaranteed, and I can say it's much more cruel than the U.S. Like I know like at here it's like they will treat the patients before they pay, and in many cases that are all like negotiable, but in China it's like if you don't pay, you're not going to be treated, and there are people even like suicide after they get diagnosed for cancer because they don't want to they still want to leave monies for their family. They know that so that's a very like cruel reality happening under the like sort of free healthcare system. Yeah.
Was that it, Ken?
That was the that was pretty much the end of his talk. Again, I had to cut out a whole lot in order to keep this, within a time frame. But the point of it was really, to me, it was interesting to hear somebody who grew up through up through high school and then finally, after COVID, made his way over here to the States. And just some of the things he talked about, I think that people don't stop and think about. I mean, these people that have protested this over this weekend about communism and how we need to have workers take over the billionaires, and that's their big chant is that they don't want to be ruled by billionaires anymore. Yet the strange thing was, their whole protest was funded by billionaires, trillionaires, whatever whatever these guys were.
Right.
So, it's the hypocrisy, and it's the fact that they don't take the time to understand what it's like to live under communism.
Yeah.
I think it pointed out, in a few things that he said. I mean, the one thing I had to laugh about is as he said, I took the test and I've studied the Constitution, and one of the people in the crowd said, "You probably know more than we do."
Yeah.
And that was a sad fact. And he kind of laughed a little bit too, but understanding that even though he's here in America, there's still fear. There's still fear that the CCP can track him. He's got to stay careful in what he does. And even a short visit over to China, he wanted to get back because he couldn't even celebrate his religion.
Right.
People don't think about the consequences. They just right now, I think, again, it's a clouded vision of what they hate about this present administration. And how they got to that point, I think we all understand that again, I think the final slide was indoctrination in our education system. And again, it goes back to the serious problem we have with our education system. And we're decades behind, Dale. We're decades behind. We have a whole generation of these kids that are in college age right now. And this young group that was there, obviously, they're doing their part, but they're a minority on that campus for sure. They're a minority on the campus.
So how long did this seminar last?
A little over an hour.
Oh. And
yeah.
you were there to record the whole thing.
Yeah, the Young Americans for Liberty had me there to capture the event of him coming in to speak. I know they put out a thing inviting people to this, and it was really initially targeted at social media and how he ended up having a problem from that, and from there it kind of led into all these other discussions. But obviously he was pulled into the police station for posting a video that was real. It was live. It wasn't like an AI thing. It wasn't degrading. It was actually shaping. He was talking on the topic, and he was asked a question, and he basically said, I don't have that in my notes, and he just moved on from there. And what he was saying was, he was talking about how he is propped up as a very intelligent person. He said he's not as intelligent as people make him out to be. Interesting.
All right. Well, that was very interesting, Ken. Thank you for putting that together. That was very interesting. Very, very interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, listen, let's, we got a Dave's Daily Dose here that I want to play. This is about children in Iran. And I think he is pointing out a very telling item that's part of this conflict that's going on. And that's the children in Iran and what the role that they're starting to play now. So let's listen to what Dave has to say on Dave's Daily Dose.
BBC reported last week that rumored reports of children getting into Iranian Basij uniforms sounds more true than not. An 11-year-old boy, Alireza Jafari, was reportedly killed recently while manning a security checkpoint with his father in Tehran. This is Dave's Daily Dose on BrokenRoadRadio.com. I'm David Allen Punt. Wikipedia says there are an estimated 300,000 child soldiers around the world. 40% are girls. Children fought in the American Civil War and the Battle of New Market. Near the end of that war, Confederate General John Breckinridge ordered cadets from the Virginia Military Institute to join the attack on the Union lines. Some of those cadets were as young as 15. Usually, when old men and young children are conscripted into battle like Hitler Youth in World War II, it's a good indication that the war is reaching an indefinite, inescapable conclusion, and one side is running out of more typically aged soldiers. An Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps official in Tehran told the Corps-affiliated Fars news agency that the organization would enroll volunteers aged 12 and up. Foreign-based human rights organizations have also reported Alireza's death. His mother, Sadaf Montferred, told local newspaper Hamshiri that the boy and his father had been helping Basij militia patrols and checkpoints to maintain the security of Tehran and its people when they were killed in mid-March. The newspaper told the BBC that the checkpoint was hit by an Israeli drone strike. An Israeli Defense Force spokesman said they couldn't verify the strike unless they knew the coordinates of the alleged strike. The 1 million-member volunteer militia is controlled by the IRGC and is deployed on Tehran streets to suppress dissent. Other citizens, their names changed, told the BBC they had seen armed teenagers working with Basiji forces. Another said he saw a teenager holding a gun at cars, stopping cars and searching them. Another woman reported that she saw young people on duty last month. They were wearing masks, but it's obvious that they were children. They stand in front of adult forces. Bill Van Esveld of Human Rights Watch adds, "There is no excuse for a military recruitment drive that targets children, much less 12-year-olds. Holly Dagrast with the Washington Institute for Near East Policy told the BBC, "This shows how deeply unpopular the Basiji forces are with their own population, that it's resorting to using children in support roles during wartime." I'm David Allen Punt.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing as well.
It is. Okay. All right, Ken, let's wrap things up this evening. And want to also remind everyone that if you're looking for to find our broadcast live, that you want to watch our broadcast live, the easiest thing to do is to look for our YouTube channel, American Patriots for Convention of States. And I think, Ken, you're going to put up a link for everyone to
I'm looking for that right now. Yeah.
utilize. Right. But if nothing else, you do a search on YouTube, American Patriots for Convention of States. When you find that YouTube channel, there you'll find our live broadcast as well as all past broadcasts. So that's the best way. Do a search on YouTube for our YouTube channel, American Patriots for Conventions of States.
And I'm posting that right now.
All right. If you have any questions or comments about tonight's broadcast, feel free to drop us an email at raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com, raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Again, before we let Marengo Mike close us out here this evening, any comments or questions from viewers that we need to address?
Let me see. No, I think we've got everything covered for the night. There was an update from David on on his reference to Back to the Future. The Back to the Future 3 was the last one that was done, and he said, I'll go ahead and post his other statement there. He said they had flying cars. We don't. Why don't we have flying cars? So we have everything else but the flying cars, I guess, and that was the wrap up on Back to the Future statement.
Yeah. I do want to correct something. I think the gentleman that I was trying to think of, I mentioned he hosted the Daily Caller. I think I was incorrect on that. I don't recall what organization he's associated with, but my goodness, I can't understand why I can't think of his name.
That's okay. We're barraged with media, so I understand. And certainly when you get a comment that you want to remember,
he's Jewish. He's a Jewish guy. Very.
Probably saw this on Newsmax or something like that, or.
Yeah, he was. I think I probably did see it on Newsmax, but he was part of a panel discussion about gender, and Caitlyn Jenner was part of the panel.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but I have one more comment to make on the whole communism thing. I'm amazed. You could just go back a little ways, and the talk was always they called it what? Democratic socialism. Everything was socialism, and now it's right out in the open. This is communism. It's bold. It's bold, and I think it's something we have to worry more about. It's not just some small group. I think it's populating. But I'm just amazed at how bold it's gotten. And gosh, I know when I was growing up, communism. Boy, that was the last thing you wanted to be involved with.
Yeah. Ben Shapiro. That's who I was thinking of.
There you go. I gave you a little time and it came back.
Yeah, I did a little quick Google.
There you go. Ben Shapiro, yeah.
I do believe, once again, this upcoming COS perspective, what's behind the scenes, what's I think playing a role in connecting a lot of what's going on in our country ties back to China and communism as one of the factors involved. I think that's behind the scenes here in this country.
And you can see how they beat it into the society over there. It's a combination of fear, and a numbness that they get used to. The government's taking care of me. Okay, this is okay. I'm not as poor as I used to be. But then again, I'm still really poor. And then you can look at what I thought was interesting. Everything that they do in their history books and all their classwork. These islands belong to us, and they beat this into these people. So you can see where that all comes from. And
but how are they getting that into our society? How are they getting that into our country and our society? How are we allowing that?
Yeah,
that's where my concern is. So anyway.
Well, it's allowed, Dale, because basically we have a whole segment. We have a segment of people at this point that are coming up under the guise of it, and so it's being allowed. And again, he referenced it at one point where he said, there's good and bad to this, and the bad part is, it's part of free speech. And unfortunately, to a lot of these people who have been educated a certain way, that's the free speech that they believe in.
Right. All right, good. All right, Ken. Thanks a lot, my man. And folks, thank you for tuning in tonight. We'll be back again next Monday evening, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll have another great show for you. Hopefully, that's our plan. So, thank you for tuning in, and everyone have a great evening. So let's let Maringo Mike close us out here, Ken.
Marengo Mike here with a reminder of the importance of this year as we continue to grow the grassroots army of volunteers and the mission of using the Constitution to fix the ills of our government. Use the QR code if you haven't signed the petition and consider using your talents to become an active volunteer. Thank you and God bless.